Running Sentences presents a bonus episode short story. Frozen Time. A man finds himself on a shopping trip to the mall with his family. He is outside of a women's clothing store. He didn't really pay attention as he waits for them to finish their latest shopping trip. But then things go strange on him. This story is written and narrated by Michael Honore. This is a work of fiction. Any names, characters, businesses, and events and situations within this story are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real people, real situations, events, characters, businesses, etc. is purely coincidental. Copyright 2023. Michael Honore. All rights reserved. Sylas leaned against the fake marble pillar that marked the difference between one store and another in this mall. It was a rather busy spot as he watched people move about from here to there, looking at stores, some going in, some not. Why his mother and sisters had decided he needed to come to the mall with them was something they hadn't bothered to tell him, so he was stuck here, outside of another store. He suspected that really had something to do with the fact that he had several bags now held in his possession, and that they were carrying none. He growled to himself as he looked about, catching sight of some pretty ladies across the walkway. It was his only consolation in all of this, getting to look at people who were attractive but would probably never ever notice him. A group of 3 walked past him, and he tried to catch a glimpse of them without looking like he was looking or staring. A move that he wasn't sure he pulled off, but pretty was pretty, and whether they were male or female didn't really much matter. There was a moment when his heart jumped as one of the women, whose arm was wrapped up in a man's, had glanced backwards. It felt like their eyes met for a moment, before he turned away to look elsewhere. "Idiot, don't stare, don't look like you're looking. No one likes to be looked at like that." He said it in a whisper to himself. Having thoroughly admonished himself, though, Sylas went back to doing what he was doing, looking about and impatiently tapping his foot while he awaited his family. They emerged from the entranceway a few moments later, and he found himself holding more bags, only these ones announcing the name of a store in a bright pink font. He felt himself blush as his sisters and mother already strolling down the concourse of this place, not speaking to him or telling him where they were going. Undoubtedly it was to some other shop, but at least say something. He felt himself getting steamed and frustrated by the lack of talking to him. He was here, after all. Was he that much of a problem? And why bring him if he was a problem? He shouldn't be treated this way. He was still standing still at the front of the store that they had come out of, and he realized that he probably needed to follow after them. His strides were short, since it was one of those busy days at the mall. In fact, he couldn't remember ever seeing it so busy with people. It was nice, since he liked people watching, and seeing good-looking ones especially. He was moving through the crowd rather easily, since it all felt like they were standing still, and he could simply walk around them. It was weird, but he ignored it for the moment as he caught up with his family, only to see that they weren't moving. He said. "Mom? Carol? Juniper? Are you okay? Why'd you stop in the middle of the concourse?" There was a moment's wait for them to say anything at all, and he decided, while he waited, to move around to be in front of them. They remained frozen in place as he got there, and began looking further around to see that everyone appeared to be frozen in place. "What's going on?" His voice echoed about the now quiet walkway, as he noted the music, which had been some pop song, that was a derivative thing, was no longer playing. It caught him off guard, and it froze him up as he took in the sight. People, lots of them, frozen in mid-stride, staring ahead or towards whatever had been nearest to them. None of them moved or looked like they were about to, and as a result, he too felt frozen in place. "Fucking hell, what something weird is going on?" he said, just to hear himself and to have something happen. When his voice came back to him, it felt like a jolt or a spark that hit him, shocking him out of his malaise and frozen feelings. Now free, he began to look once more about, trying to get used to his surroundings and to think. The first thing he did, though, was drop the damn bags he'd been holding. Though as they touched the ground, he was sort of curious about them. He'd never paid attention to women's clothes before, and well, neither his sister nor his mother really dressed up. But maybe they'd bought something different this time? There was supposed to be this big dance coming up at the college that they were attending or something. He admitted to himself he liked nice-looking things as well, and, well, there's nothing wrong with looking at nice-looking things and seeing them, was there? Distracted by this, he idly reached for the bags to see what was in them, his hand trying to pull at the handles of the bags, but as he tugged, he found that they were rather stiff and unwilling to move or open. There wasn't any give, no matter how much he wiggled at them. What he could see with a quick once-over showed nothing special about them, so he shrugged, since he didn't really care that much, and besides, his mind was going a mile a minute trying to figure out what was wrong. And his mind was also asking what else he might be able to get away with and do. Everyone was frozen and not moving, which meant he could try things, right? A shake of his head at the thought of groping women was a terribly appealing one, but it also was wrong, wasn't it? And he should concentrate on his family, who were definitely important to him. Yep. He nodded his head and turned to reach out for his sister Juniper, who was closest to him. But held back just at the last moment from touching her. Wait, what if this wakes her up and she's able to move around? Yeah, I don't know what to do. Might wake her up, might stop me from maybe having fun, maybe, oh, I don't know. Well, if I touch her and she becomes free, I guess it won't matter if I try and touch out to other people. He said this, confused and sighing and trying to figure out if it was okay to touch a person or not. Thinking that he was thinking all too much about this, he merely reached out for his sister, trying to shake her out of this. His hand grabbed a hold of Juniper's arm, expecting it to be the usual softness of a human body. But all he felt was stiff, and he recoiled in surprise. Why do you feel wooden, maybe a stone-like? He asked. There was no response, and he wasn't sure what else to do aside from stare at his sister. His attention then was caught by a solid feeling that, staring between his hand and the arm of his sister, it was so odd, so different, and simply wasn't right or computing. Why? And what else was like this? Were all of these people like this? A glance to the bags reminded him that they had felt odd, and he reached down for them once more, getting the same sensation as he touched the paper that they were made out of. Okay, so things are kind of rock or wooden-like, but is that just some of these things or some stuff? He whispered this to himself. Why would it be some stuff and not all stuff, though? What is going on? The question buzzed about his mind as he took a further look around and spotted a woman who had glanced back at him before. She was a few feet away, and his imagination said that she had something to do with this. He was sure of this, even though he was also positive that that sounded ridiculous, and it was not a point he should have come up with. But with some trepidation he walked towards this woman he'd seen, gulping a few times, unsure if he should go and reach out and touch her. It felt wrong, like his hands would slip and touch something it shouldn't, although the idea was a bit exciting for all the wrong ways. No, stop! Bad! No! He chastised himself again. Such things were not good to do. He reminded himself to be that good person, and that touching an arm wasn't a bad thing, especially in the cases where things had gone terribly weird, and, maybe it would wake them up, maybe it wouldn't. But once again, his grasp felt a hard substance, even though he was sure he was touching bare skin. But maybe it was a fake arm. Maybe, should he reach out and touch her other arm? Or touch some other place to confirm that it was all weird? Perhaps grab a hold of someone else and shake them. Yes, that sounded like an idea he could get behind. A hurried step brought him up to an old man who looked like he'd been having a good conversation with an old woman next to him. taking in a deep breath and hoping for the best, Sylas grabbed a hold of each arm of the old man and began to shake. The stone-like feeling and unwilling to move was still there, and he quickly gave up on doing it. A fear had taken a hold of him that, should he shake too hard, he might knock the man over and out of his grasp. And then, since stone had a habit of shattering, the figure of the man might shatter into a million pieces. At least that's what his imagination had decided to tell him. Calm down and think. Everything is frozen in place, but is it? Am I stuck here? He felt himself saying this. His head was spinning and was simply not going to go on a straight thought, which was making it difficult to remain still and calm on this concourse, as if the whole world felt frozen, yet circling about in a spinning, frantic fashion. There was a need to lean against something that came to him, and so he stumbled his way towards a nearby pillar between one of the stores. He failed to get to that, having no control over his feet, and with the panic and frustration setting in. And he found himself in front of one of the stores that had a door letting people in and out. The handle hit his hand, and he held on to it, keeping himself from falling over, leaning and twisting this way and that as he tried to calm down with his weight pulling on the door, which didn't move. There were a few moments before it clicked into his mind, as things stopped going around and around. Maybe he should push on the door. However, when he realized that the door wasn't moving, this only brought on a whole new set of thoughts. The doors don't open? Wait, what if the world is entirely like this? Can I even get out of here? If everything is stone-like, that means it won't move, right? But what if one of the exit doors are stuck open? Yeah, maybe I can escape. He found himself taking a few tentative steps in one direction, trying to orient himself and figure out where the nearest entrance and exit to the mall were. It felt like going to his right was the closest way. But unsure of that, he figured one way or another he would wind up at one of the main ways in and out. For the first time in what seemed like a long time, Sylas ran as hard as he could. The last thing he wanted to be was stuck in a mall with no way out and everything stone-like. He arrived at a mostly empty entranceway, which greeted him after a minute of rushing, and he headed straight towards it. The sliding automatic doors, and the ones with handles, were empty of any people, and when he stepped in front of them, they didn't move, and when he grabbed at them, they did not move. Not wasting a moment more, he began running back the way he'd come, only to slow down about halfway. Running was getting him nowhere fast, and if he was stuck here, using up his energy seemed like a bad idea. And with his luck, the food in the food court was probably frozen in time as well. Then what would he do? Or to the bathroom? What if he needed to use the bathroom and they were all closed off and frozen in time? The other entranceway would loom into sight, and, much like the other one, none of the doors would open up, as no one was near them. With senses pounding, all he felt like he could do was find another thing to lean against and slump to the floor. He was dead if he couldn't get out of here, and if he couldn't think straight. Once again, against the wall, the weight of himself was too much, and sank down so that he was sitting on the ground with his hands covering his face. The sounds of life and things moving about almost didn't reach him, but the noise of people going about their day did make him look up and blink. A look to his left and right found him back in front of the women's clothing store. It may have been Intimates, may have just been regular store, with bags in hands, leaning against it, still standing. Sylas blinked a few times and looked hard to his right to see where the good-looking girl had been. He saw her quite easily, with a soft grin on her face, before turning back to face forward. A million or so thoughts were ramming through his mind, begging to be thought of. Had she done this to him? How? Was it all just his imagination? All he could do, though, was lean against the wall and drop the bags so that he could hold his hand against his face as he tried to figure all of this out, just as his mother and sisters came out of the store and began handing him their new bags. The end of frozen time. Thank you for listening.